Hello to everybody and warm welcome to this panel discussion on investing in impact and sustainable solutions. My name is Hartman and I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer in the city of Uppsala in Sweden. Well, the topic is investing, sustainability. How does investors' money that seeks investments with a good purpose, good impact, find those entrepreneurs, those investments, and how can we channel all this innovation into true needs and ambitions in the local level, national level, or international level? So that will be our discussion today. We all know that our planet and our human life has lots of challenges. We really need action now. We need it until 2030 when the global goals have their final point, but we definitely need the action already today. And of course, one important aspect in this is to invite startups to solve all these most pressing issues and needs through the entrepreneurial mindset and innovative way of thinking. So probably to get this done, we need to lower the thresholds for the investors. We really need to build up an infrastructure to get this done. We need to remove obstacles. We need to have concrete ideas, goals, and so on. And to my big pleasure here, I have a very, very clever and innovative group of people in the both in the studio with me, but also online. So I start by asking you all in my panel to shortly introduce yourself by name and your basically your title, so we get to know who you are, and then we start discussing. I can tell that we have also already had a short discussion here before this open session, so I know a bit more what ideas they're going to lift here. But please start, Åsa. Who are you?
So I'm an innovation strategist at Viable Cities, which is a strategic innovation program targeting climate neutral and sustainable cities. And we work together with Uppsala, Stockholm, and 21 other cities in Sweden and their partners to transform the cities to become climate neutral and sustainable by 2030.
Thank you. Simon.
Yeah, so my name is Simon Olsen, and I am an entrepreneur and an investor. And I primarily invest in deep tech, pre-seed and seed stage companies overall. A lot to do with both here in the local regions of Stockholm and Uppsala, but then also in Bay Area.
And online we have Anne. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Molin, and I am the founder and secretary general of the Hack for Earth Foundation. And our mission is to create citizen-driven innovation and real solutions to the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals by organizing global hackathons. Thank you.
Thank you. Wolfgang, introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, I'm an independent advisor and investor. And I'm the former head of supply chain and transport industries at the World Economic Forum. I'm on several think tanks, for example, the Singapore government, German government. I'm writing a lot of papers about technology and impact, impact, responsible leadership, etc. Great to be here, and thanks for joining the session.
Thank you. Örjan, Jansson, who are you? What are you doing?
Thank you. Great to be here. I'm working at WWF and is a global lead of a program called Climate Innovations, with the purpose to really facilitate innovations that can help our climate to scale up and get bigger impact. So we're looking hard into what are the hurdles today. And my background is I'm an entrepreneur. I've been working with startups within clean tech for more than 10 years.
Thank you. Lennaert.
Thanks for inviting me and nice to see everyone back here. My name is Lennaert Jonkers. I'm a concerned citizen foremost, but then also an entrepreneur, investor, as well as an advisor. And I really focus on impact ventures that have a social and or ecological impact. Nice to be here.
Thank you. Stina, please.
Hello, I am Stina Lantz, Vice President of Swedish Incubators and Science Parks and Head of Ignite Sweden, a national platform that are supporting startups to enter market together with customers, both in private and public sector.
And finally, Sacha, please.
Hi, my name is Sacha Ghiglione. I'm CEO of Prime Computer. We help companies to reach their digitization and environmental goals whilst reducing their total cost of ownership. And I am an environmentalist, advising several companies on climate action. And I'm really happy to be here and hopefully giving a good input.
Thank you all. I thought of starting with you, Simon. We've had this discussion on, everybody seems to be quite agree on that we really need to get some action done. We really need to find more investments or more investors to find these investments in order to gain more sustainability. What are your thoughts on the previous discussion that our audience haven't heard, but maybe you can give us a short summary?
Yeah, sure. So we've discussed a lot about government policies and also how that interacts with investors such as myself, and then also down on the startup level. And I consider myself to be more on the sort of gritty level of startups. And so what my thought about this is basically that there needs to be a mind shift or a mindset shift in terms of how we approach these problems, right? So an example would be way back in the 60s when we really wanted to put a man on the moon. We had a very clear directive. This is going to happen, and this is the short timeline that it's going to happen in. And then there's a lot easier to work towards that common goal. And I think really what needs to happen is to have a set clear goal that we work towards, and that transcends into a lot of our own investment theses, and really down to the startup level as well, to facilitate for market growth. Because essentially what I look for when I invest in companies are companies that solves an actual problem that customers really want to buy into as well. So for me, it's super important to have that sort of clear long-term goal, but it needs to be tangible and not just something on a piece of paper that we'll revise in a year.
So you think we have the 17 global goals in the 2030 agenda, but are those too abstract? Or are you into more?
Well, I think
concrete?
we had a little conversation here before. I think those are great. It's a great starting point. But in terms of deriving them down to actual problems that we need to solve right now, like for instance, my car can't drive if I don't have winter tires on, right? That's a super concrete goal that I can see sort of the marketplace for, right? We need to do the same kind of things with these goals so that they become more concrete and not something. I think that in some cases they actually become a greenwashing sort of agenda for a lot of companies, and that's a shame because that's not the point of them, right? The point of them is to solve pressing issues that are a little too off on our reach, that we can't comprehend in a way that makes it tangible enough. And so really sort of bringing it closer to the people and make more people like us understand that this is something that needs to be done now and not in a year, and then allocate for it accordingly. I'd be happy to invest more into impact startups, and I mean, it's all about finding a good market fit for these kinds of startups that I invest in. So
the need of sort of more concrete goals and a more concrete and well-defined description of the challenges and needs was actually a topic that we've discussed. Other ideas, or if we just start by you, who should do that concretization? How can we reach that?
Yeah, I think it comes down to everybody. Everybody has a responsibility to see what you can do about it, right? But not in a too fluffy way, so it only ends with me buying cardboard bags for grocery shopping instead of plastic bags, because that it's nice, but we need to do more than just that in order to reach the bigger climate goals. So in terms of, if I speak for myself, it's really about taking the responsibility and giving these kinds of startups that actually solve a substantial challenge a chance, and not dismiss them because it's too long of a go-to-market.
Yeah. Several of you were into this question in our previous discussion. I think Stina, you talked about it as well. What are your thoughts on on the concretization of the needs and challenges. Can cities or the local level or the national level be a help there?
I think absolutely. And I think what Wolfgang also wrote here in the chat is really important, that the city needs to find ways to, despite procurement, the public also procurement, and of course some other policy issues, to actually be bold and brave and start to collaborate with the startups that actually have a lot of these solutions already. They don't have to be invented now. We have a lot of solutions already here and now. This is just about how to utilize these solutions for the cities. And I think this is where we need to be much faster and braver now. So absolutely, I think we can do a lot.
Yeah, Wolfgang, do you want to comment on this?
Yeah, I'm looking for the big lever, and I made it clear in the previous discussion. For me, there's a big responsibility in the hands of the policymakers, and I think what is also important is to help the cities to make better decisions with experts, because the city governments, they were not trained and equipped to make such decisions. So there is also a skilling and advisory dimension which we have to consider. A lot of people have difficulties to understand deep tech. So how can a city do that? Or the use of tools. There is a comment that digitization and software doesn't bring us that far, but human brains can only do certain things. So there are a lot of tools which would help to reduce CO2 in the city. So let's help the city to find these tools.
Yeah, Stina, comment on that.
Yeah, just a quick comment. Actually, Uppsala won our award earlier this week in Sustainability Hero category, together with the Swedish Energy Authorities, with a startup that has a software that actually allows Uppsala to have a local energy market, which I think, and that's a great example that it can be achieved a lot. And as a city, you can really work fast.
Yeah, Wolfgang.
Yeah, very short comment. We didn't speak about academia. So there is also academia which can help the cities.
A word that I heard many of you mention earlier was the next generation ecosystem. We need a sort of a new system for this, and I think you're into that as well in your introductory comments. How can we do that? How can we reach that? And what is that? How does it look like? Åsa?
I think that there is one opportunity within the Climate City contract to actually try to drive those kinds of ecosystems a step further.
Can you please tell us with a few words what the climate contract is?
I'll try to briefly describe what this is. This is an agreement between the city leaders of 23 cities in Sweden thus far, including Uppsala, and 5 national governments at the national level in Sweden, to make commitments to how do we together accelerate the transition to climate neutral and sustainable cities by 2030. And this is revised each year. So we actually sharpen both the ambitions and the implementation each year. And within the context of these Climate City contracts, there's a huge opportunity to mobilize stakeholders. You've done an admirable job in Uppsala, for instance, in the Uppsala Protocol, where a lot of organizations have mobilized around how can we be more ambitious and more concrete in how we drive change in terms of climate transition. But building upon that and building upon the ecosystems in each of these 23 and beyond, we have 290 municipalities in Sweden. We have loads and loads in Europe. So these are huge business opportunities. If we build these ecosystems, parting from, as Simon said earlier, the concrete needs and in a common direction to really achieve climate neutrality and sustainability by 2030. So building on these agreements, I think there is a huge opportunity to build these next generation ecosystems.
And a part of the agreement is from the government side is to promise better regulation, better
Exactly.
policy.
Yeah.
So there's an opportunity to that as well. You have, if we try to be as concrete as possible, the policy changes or the regulations that we wish to see in order to enhance this new ecosystem and more investments. What would that be? Just raise your hand, so I'll give you the word. Lennaert.
Yeah, I
then
think
Sacha.
this is a double-edged sword that has to be put in place in the right spot, because if you look at all the measurement systems, frameworks, ESG, SDGs, and all kinds of alphabets, the big problem is that they're all socially manipulable. So you all of them, in essence, are great frameworks that could be used very well. But just if you look at from business context, they all get used to basically not change or change as late as possible because of all kinds of strategic imperatives that corporate businesses are relying on. So I think this policy, on one hand, very shortly, if it doesn't end up making something clear on the P&L sheet, the profit and loss sheet of a company, it doesn't really matter, because there's 100 ways. I mean, tax avoidance, tax evasion, we all know all the tricks in the books, and there's a lot of that happening now also with sustainability. So there is something really concrete that needs to happen, and that requires, there's a lot of lobbying on the other side. So I think it's very clear what needs to be done. It's not complex at all. It's just not, there's a complexity being put around it to kind of deter real action on it. So I think that there really needs to be a country stepping up in this regard. And I would say that Sweden has a big chance of doing that, more so probably than my own country, to really take a step and put more bold regulations in place.
So sticks and carrots, both of them, but regulation, is it the main thing you'd like to see, or are there other economic incentives or other ways of reaching it?
On a local level, what you could say is that benefits that a city could give to companies could be tied to also certain things. So that's the double-edged sword. I think it needs to work on multiple levels, where one of the questions I ask myself many times is, how uncomfortable does it need to get before I change? And it needs to become very uncomfortable for humans to change, because we don't want to change. And it's the same happening now on a global scale with companies, countries, and so on. You don't want to lose your position. You don't want to lose your security, and so on, for good reason too many times. But on the whole, we know where we're going, so it doesn't make sense at all. So there needs to be introduced a pain point for any problem to be solved, right? That's also how startups also work, and we cannot always outgrow and out-innovate our way out of this one. So I think it's very key that it happens from multiple sides.
I think I saw Sacha raising your hand, and then Örjan. So your wish list on policy now, please go ahead, Sacha.
So first of all, I fully agree. It needs to be more expensive to do the bad thing and less expensive to do the good thing. And I'm talking about doing the sustainability thing. And that way could be done, and Lennaert said that, by, for instance, taxing CO2 in a bigger way. And that taxes do not go directly to the government, but go back to the actual startups or companies, etc., to give a new ecosystem. So there are different ways in Europe actually currently looking on that, how to do that. I think to be a concrete action should be looking on 3 KPIs, how to fast reduce CO2 emissions, how to reduce energy consumption, and how to reduce waste. And that, as Stina said, there are a lot of solutions already on the market currently where we can give, and then coming back to what Wolfgang said, we can do a 2, 3, 4 weeks transition. Let's try that and see if that works, and don't make it like Germany, bureaucratic as hell, to adapt those changes. So I think there could be changes made next year by try out or put on 3 KPIs. That's my 2 cents.
Örjan, what is your comment?
Yes, I want to agree on this with that. Also, that Lennaert says here that I mean, optimally, we would have incentives that works with the capitalism that we can put a price on everything, and have the policy rights or the incentives drives us to do the change we need. But in the short time, I think there's a need for a midterm tool to measure impact. I think that is one way forward to before we reach that level where we really have all the incentives in place. If you want to invest in impact, you also need to measure impact and calculate impact and be more specific about it. There is a lot of shortcomings with that, but I think today we are still not very mature in this to really, it can be, a lot of things are decided on gut feeling rather than the best calculations you can make. And I think we can be more professional in that to pinpoint what impact we really want to invest in. Yeah, thanks.
I think that is a good point. We were discussing that as well, because my belief is that there already today, while waiting for the policy changes and the regulations and all that, there are actually possibilities to gain on and see the positive sides of these kind of investments. If we start measuring more, we also open our eyes for all the impact. Wolfgang wants to comment, and Åsa as well. Wolfgang, please.
Yeah, it's building on what Örjan has said. We need also to follow through on the pledges and commitments that are made. I think we need a neutral, trustworthy organizations that record those pledges and follow them through. Because what has been pledged over the last 18 months, I've never seen that much. This is all wonderful. So who is accountable for that, and who records it, and who checks later on? I think that's the midterm, but even the long term, because they make pledges 2030, 2040, 2050. These are 2-3 management generations, right? So we have to find a way for that as well.
Åsa, what do you think?
I can build upon what Wolfgang just said, because one part of the Climate City contract that we developed together with the cities in Sweden is actually to make those commitments revised every year and also sharpen the implementation. And a part of this, we are working together with Uppsala and other municipalities and other actors in the investment community also to make estimations. What does it really take to become climate neutral by 2030? How much of those investments can be made by municipalities? Estimates are about 10 or 15% maybe is the remit of municipality. Other investors need to come in to make this happen. So it's a team play. It's really something that we need to do together. There is no kind of actor that can point to each other and say that you need to take care of this. This is something where we need to build this ecosystem 2.0 that you were talking about earlier. So this is really, we need to be committed and we need to be accountable in terms of what do we really achieve. And I think we need to have heroes that actually achieve the sustainability and climate goals, also in the investment and entrepreneurial community.
I was just about to turn to you, so comment, please.
No, that's on that good topic. I think Anne is doing an amazing job working with local grassroots initiatives to just facilitate those first kind of steps, as well as Stina. And so really getting to a point where we can start seeing that the market is ripe for these companies makes me want to invest in those companies. So really, if I mirror that question, would be. Would you buy their services, right? If you as a municipality or a city are committing to buying their services, that makes for a huge incentive for me to invest in them, because that would make me, the companies would scale from that. And being able to have, I don't know how many municipalities we have, but 270 something as potential more clients for these companies would make for a very interesting case. But really, I'd like to hear what both of them have to say, because I think they're doing an amazing job on that point.
Anne, over to you.
What did you want me to say, Simon?
No, but really, just tell your story about the initiatives, because I think it's a good way of breaking down the problems. First and foremost, I think that for me, they are a little bit too abstract, and I think that you're doing a wonderful job of just synthesizing them to a level where people actually can start working with them.
Okay, shortly then. Thank you. As we have been talking a little bit here, it's the Sustainable Development Goals are a little bit too abstract, and so we think so too. It's hard to hack on them, to make them a reality, because there's 17 of them, and all those 17 have subdivisions, and it's just too much. So we actually launched the Dream for Earth campaign to deal with this issue. So that was inviting everyone all over the world to share their dream connected to the 17 development goals, sustainable development goals, in a video or a text on a website called dreamforearth.com. And we collected over 1,000 dreams, 1,200 from 61 countries. And then we analyzed them with an AI tool. And then we got the result that we see that people are dreaming about different things depending on where you live in the world. Then we let our partner community, we have 32 partners in our partner community, everything from the United Nations to big companies and non-profit organizations and academia, and all over the world. And we let them create real challenges for our hackathon, connected to the dreams that people had posted. And then we invited everyone to join the Hack for Earth hackathon. So now we have actually 1,400 teams participated from 121 countries. And we have winners in 7 categories. And it's super exciting to see what they will come up with. And now we are bringing them into our acceleration program, the Build for Earth program. And of course, the others that didn't win, we are taking care of them as well in our Hack for Earth community, hoping that we can support them as well, but not to the level and the extent that we will take care of the 7 winners in our challenge categories. So this is like, I started doing this working for the government mission Hack for Sweden, and it really frustrated me that we didn't take care of the solutions afterwards. It was so hard, as you all have been talking about here too, making sustainable impact solutions come to life. It's difficult, right? It's something to have an idea, and execution is everything. And execution within public sector in Sweden, don't let me go there, because it's too hard. So that's why that's really the reason for me starting the Hack for Earth Foundation. I just decided to do it myself, and hopefully it will have some real impact, but that we will see in 6 months from now.
Does anybody want to comment on that?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah, Stina.
I think that's something very that you're saying. I will not repeat it again, but a way to actually execute is also for the municipalities and the cities to find entrepreneurs that are already building their companies and gain the force from them and together with them, and actually to work together with startups. So I think it's a key here to use the entrepreneurs that are already out there.
I think it's so inspiring. You want to comment on that, Anne?
I just want to add that I'm just so in awe of what Stina is doing with your work, and we've known each other for the past couple of years now, and it's just super impressive. So what you're doing with the Swedish innovation ecosystem and bringing the startups to life, it's amazing. Just wanted to add that.
Great to have this
Right back
positive. Yeah, also, please.
I just wanted to take the opportunity, since we hopefully have a lot of interesting startups watching, that we're collaborating together with Stina and Ignite Sweden and a lot of other actors around Climate Smart Cities Challenge. So look into that. And these are kind of global challenges that are out there now for you tech startups or whatever. If you want to contribute to climate neutral cities all over the world, check this out.
And for the audience, please write if you have any questions, you can write them in the chat. We will pick them up in a minute. But Anne told us not to go into the public sector issue, but I'll do that anyway, since I'm a part of the public sector, and I know that there's a lot of power, and I hear you talking about policy. There's a need of more policy. The public sector buys services and products for billions of kronas per year, only in Sweden. So there is a lot of power in either inviting into innovation or being too specific in our criteria, in our demands, when we try to be concrete. I mean, let's just take Uppsala as an example. We are always supposed to have sustainability goals in our buying of anything. So we try to be open in order to open up for innovation, but we also have to be specific in order to make this criteria concrete. That's a difficult balance. We try to have dialogue with the companies. You have any good advice to give? How is it experienced from the other side? You have any comments on that? Because that is a powerful tool. Lennaert.
Yeah, I think this one, what comes up in me is like, make sure you have clarity internally and an agenda, because otherwise you'll become part of someone else's agenda that accounts with everything in life. And I think that holds especially true in this case as well. So although it's very good to have these conversations with all kinds of stakeholders, it's also very important to have a framework in which you're having that conversation that's not exclusive, but at least is structured in a way towards a goal, also to the point that was earlier made, to have a clear goal, because otherwise it becomes, you can get into a committee meeting with a lot of debates and then no action, or, you have a very clear proposition from industry, which is amplifying the same thing, what has been happening until now a lot. So I think that's really key. Another point that came up also when I heard Stina and I'm talking about what they're doing is, I think diversity is very key. So what I see is a lot of thinking groups, committees, and it's kind of, even though there's a diversity in men, women, all nationalities, backgrounds, cultures, and so on, there's not that much diversity in thinking. And I think that's really key when you're trying to solve these type of harder problems.
Thank you. Stina, you want to comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on something. We often, when we talk about the public sector and the opportunities for innovation in public sector, we talk about policies and we talk about regulations and we talk about obstacles. But I think also it's really dangerous if we just sit and wait for the policy part to be solved, because you can't solve a policy upon something that you really don't know what it is. And that's the baseline of innovation. You need to innovate, and then as long as you learn together with startups, for example, then you can also write and come up with the new policies. So I think this is a joint process, and we cannot do one or the other. We need to do both simultaneously.
Good point. And now I turn to my colleague here backstage in the studio, Johan. If we have any, I don't see the chat, but are there any questions that you wish me to raise? We do have it. It's coming here. Great. I read it up. The Nordics has long been considered to be the forerunners within sustainability and innovation. How could the Nordics leverage on these heritage and traditions to take the lead in impact investing?
That's a tough one. I could start if you like to. I think that I keep resorting to the fact that if there is a market opportunity that companies want to solve, and there's the demand for that particular solution, we don't really have a problem here. Like, I mean, there needs to be a demand for these kinds of products. Otherwise, people like me and other investors aren't really in a point where you can fund something that doesn't have a demand. And so, in order to stay aligned in terms of innovation and bringing up these large companies that we have a heritage of doing, really, we need to sort of defend our position and make sure that there is a domestic market, at least a domestic seed market, to grow out of, and then sort of keep that mentality that has made us successful, which is born to be global, or born to scale out of Sweden. So I think that those are two important topics on how to keep being competitive.
Great. Any other comments? Must have thoughts on this. Åsa?
I think there's a huge opportunity for Swedish municipalities and Nordic municipalities and Swedish and Nordic regional actors and also national to work together on different topics in order to create a demand in new ways, because I think there are a lot of commonalities in the Nordic markets, which makes us kind of very prone to become a test market for global. And as Simon said, we have kind of, by definition in the Nordics, a very kind of global setting for the way we do business. We're very open and small economies. So that's an advantage.
Great. I don't see any. Yeah, now Örjan, please.
Yes, it's almost the same comment as Åsa, that I think we have a big opportunity that is not fully untapped, that trying to share good examples when they succeed in, for instance, when municipalities succeed in bringing in an innovation and starting to scale it up, we should immediately try to spread that, because like you say, there's a lot of common situation among the municipalities. So that is something I think we can make more out of.
Great. We start coming ahead the end of this interesting session, but I'd like to end by a tour around the table again. If we meet here again in a year, we've had this 12 months of action. That was our first question to discuss. What is the best thing that has happened, that we have accomplished in these 12 months? What will you be most proud of if we are optimistic now? We meet again in a year. Wolfgang wants to start.
No, Sacha was first.
Go you, then I come.
Wolfgang, please, and then we take Sacha.
Yeah, if we is me, I would be very proud if one of my circular economy startups, impact startups, would have a great growth trajectory, because that's what I put on my agenda. That's my mission, right? To make good startups grow.
Okay, so one startup that has really been a success story. I think you're very shy here. Maybe 5 would be good to see more of them.
I've not been in the startup business. One is already pretty tough.
Great. Sacha, what is your dream?
So obviously I share that with Wolfgang, because if that would be the one, then and he's referring to us, then it's great. But I would be, I want to help to solve something. So I would be really eager if you could see in 12 months that action happened. We talked about that also in the close session. This is the most critical part, that we do not just talk, but that we see something happen, that it has communicated, that, for instance, Uppsala, Stockholm would implement something, test something 6 months. Okay, that helped reducing CO2 emissions by that, because it is measured, all the things we just said, but it actually happened, and not that, okay, now we need to sit together 8 months and do so. So that would be phenomenal. And then we can go out to the other countries and say, look, this happened, this is great. You need to do that same.
So we can sell the Nordic success story too. Anne, what is your dream?
My dream Yeah, my dream for this coming year is that all the 7 winning solutions from Hack for Earth are made a reality, bringing value to citizens and to Earth within a year. So that would be if we have 7 winners who will be actually giving real value to people around the world in human rights, health, environment, education, sustainable society, partnership, and water, I would just be amazed. But who knows? You can always.
We look forward to celebrate on that. Lennaert, what will you be celebrating in a year?
So I'm currently next to the capital allocation, which I hope to inspire more and more investors to have more of a legacy approach than just focusing only on the return on their investments. Because I mean, capitalism is great, but we need the different type of capital deployment, and that's also different from the current impact investment, because that has a different scheme. So I think there's really a gap. So starting to create a coalition of the willing there, that's one thing. And very concrete, I help some of the innovators and founders to get funded and to help them grow their business. So that's very concrete, what I hope to have more success with and help them with. And another thing, I'm working on an initiative which is helping existing companies, so mid-cap companies, so not big corporates, not startups or scale-ups, but existing companies to actually transform their business to become more sustainable and to create a leading group of those who are doing that. And I'm starting within agri-food, so really curious to see what happens with that.
Great, several reasons to celebrate. And Stina, what will you be celebrating?
Yeah, first a shout out to Lennaert. I want to hear all about that later on. But that sounds really, really inspiring and interesting. I think I would like to celebrate. Here you go, Åsa. That several of the startups that are winning the challenges or actually winning the real collaborations with the cities in our competition that is out right now, but also in Sweden with the climate contracts. I would like to see them having gotten substantial investments, and maybe some investment from you, Lennaert, for example, because they can show that they have real customers that are willing to sign contracts for them and with them for about 10 years. What do you say about that?
Åsa.
So over to me.
Yeah,
to
over to you. What will you celebrate? The same thing.
Yeah, basically, yes, because I think that if we're really successful, and I hope we really are committed to becoming really, truly successful with the 23 cities pioneering the efforts to mobilize locally, but also nationally in the EU to become climate neutral, and that the startup communities and the investment communities are really committed parts of this. If this is natural, next time we meet at UPPSTART, next time we meet at all the communities that are about startups and investments, we're talking about how they become a power in transforming our cities and transforming our societies to become sustainable and climate neutral. And that is totally natural. That would be my dream.
Great.
Yeah.
Simon, over to you. What's your celebration?
Well, I hopefully have a couple of portfolio companies that have made it to the larger sort of stage and has a real impact on the problems that they're trying to solve. But then also, I think that on the other side of being an investor, it's attracting capital, and I really want to convert a couple of large institutional investors into the fund that sees the same kind of problem spaces that I see. I really enjoy deep tech, and I'm an engineer by default, and so I really enjoy working with entrepreneurs from bottom up and helping my investors to see that as well, that there are actually possibilities here that make sense from an impact perspective. And I think that's, that conversation is not easy to have, but it needs to happen. And it's also my responsibility to make it happen. So, I mean, that's hopefully what we'll look forward to next year.
Great. And I and my colleagues in Uppsala will celebrate that we've become one of the 100 European climate cities, of course.
Nice.
We have lots of reasons to celebrate in a year. I hope to see you again, if not here, somewhere else. And I wish you all very much
I
good
would
luck.
be eager to hear Örjan's dream.
I'm so sorry.
No
My
problem. Do we have
mistake.
time for it? Otherwise,
Yes,
it's so.
of course, we have my mistake. Please,
Okay, no
one
worries.
more reason to celebrate.
No worries. It's kind of a mix of what many others said. But I think it would be great to see some systemic changes. I think we really need to speed up the pace on good innovation reaching scale. And there's so many hurdles. And I think especially within the municipalities as a demand owner, there's so much opportunity to take away hurdles. And Uppsala is far ahead. And if we can, spread that and really make that common and take some more steps, we will just get much more speed. To feel that next year would be super.
Great. Thank you, Sacha. I tried to be a bit innovative and not take you in the order that I see you on the screen, and it went like that.
Always.
Thank you so much. So great to discuss with you this afternoon. Have a very nice weekend, all of you in the audience as well. Thank you for us.